Alright, so this is trap cards for the future. I did the spell version. This is the trap version. Traps that I see will have, some usability, some playability in the future, and that future is, getting closer than I thought. This video had been supposed to have been done a long time ago. I just recently found out that there's some new counter traps coming out, which are going to be really good, as well as a search for them, right? We're getting that Liberator something, I forgot what the name of the card was, but it's Liberator something. It's like a counter fairy card, and it has an ability when you normal summon it, you can grab 3 counter trap cards from your deck and out of your deck, reveal it to your opponent. Your opponent chooses one and gives it to you. Typical thing you would do is grab 3 copies of the same exact counter trap, so that way they have no choice but to give you what you want. And then it's the pendulum monster, if you put it in the pendulum zone, it has the ability where you don't pay life points to activate counter trap cards, and you don't have to discard cards for the cost of counter trap cards. So in other words, Divine Wrath, you don't have to discard a card in order to activate its effect. You don't have to discard a card for Judgment of Anubis, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. For warning, solemn warning. Solemn. Yeah, solemn. So you see solemn warning. Imagine if Judgment wasn't banned. You don't have to pay half the life points to activate it. Oh man, that'd be the nuts. Solemn scolding. See, it says pay 3,000 life points, so you don't have to pay the 3,000 for scolding. As you can see, this is a counter trap, this is a counter trap, this is a counter trap. So you'll be able to search them. So I already saw that counter traps will be the next thing, that more players will play more counter traps, less normal traps and continuous traps. It'll be more counter trap. Since counter traps are supposed to be 3, they're harder to respond to than normal traps and continuous traps, because they need to use counters to counter counters and stuff. They need supposed to be 3 cards, so they need counters to counter counter. So you don't have to worry about somebody chaining to your card effect if you use something. Like, you don't have to worry about your opponent activates their effect, their monster effect, then you like Divine Wrath, and then they'll be like, oh, Lance to protect my monster from effect getting negated. No, it won't work that way. You can't Lance in response to Divine Wrath, since it's supposed to be 3. Stuff like that, if you use warning and so forth, it'll be hard for your opponent to respond if you're using counter traps. So, as I said, the whole concept of counter traps being used in the future is a lot sooner. It's going to happen a lot sooner than I thought, right? I thought this might take maybe 2 to 3 more years for counter traps to be like commonly used a lot as staples in decks, but I guess that future is now. So anyway, as you can see, I got Force Bank. It's good against normal summon and flip summons. Tribute summons are normal summons, so your opponent's normal summons a monarch, tribute summons to summon a monarch. Force it back to the hand. That negates their, the monster summoning. If your opponent flip summons a monster like a Shadal monster, flips it to activate the effect, force it back to the hand, negate that effect. It's a good card as counter traps. If your opponent normal summons something, this card is even good against Jinzo. They normal summon Jinzo, by tributing, boom, force it back. That way, your traps are still useful. So it's a really good card. But it doesn't get played as much as Warning or anything else. Obviously, Warning is a lot stronger in its own right. But Force Back is a good card. I don't see a reason not to play it, right? Divine Wrath, really good card. It's always been good. It's never stopped being good. It's just people stop wanting to play it. People just been get used to not using it, even though it destroys the monster, not just negates the effect, but also destroys the monster. And then it's a counter trap, so you don't have to worry about somebody chaining, you know, like a Lance, a Book of Moon or something, to avoid you negating the monster effect. You know what I mean? So you'd think more people will play it because it's a really, really powerful card. It will beat a lot of the meta decks and so forth and so forth. You know, it could beat Stardust Assault Mode, Notoria Beast, Barkion. You know, it could beat a lot of monsters. You know what I mean? It can negate and destroy a lot of powerful monsters, and that's what we use in the game a lot, is powerful monsters with powerful effects. Why not Divine Wrath them? See, the thing about warning, for example, is the fact that if your opponent already has a monster on the field, warning is useless. So if you draw a warning, you can't really do nothing with it because the monster's already on the field. See, with Divine Wrath, you can set it as long as you have a card in your hand, and your turn, your opponent activates that monster. The fact, boom, Divine Wrath, discard a card. You just defeated their monster. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Plus, as the awesome Cannon Soldier in there, right? He's amazing. You see him, he's shooting the sky and obliterating Sanctuary in the sky like a goon. Judgment of Anubis, decent card. People do play MST. So you discard a card, you negate the activation and the effect of a spell card controlled by your opponent that has the effect of destroying spell and trap or trap card or cards on the field and destroy it. So you can use this to counter MST. Then it gives you the effect that you can destroy one face-up monster on your opponent's side of the field and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of the destroyed monster. Look at it, ain't that amazing? You know, it's the fact that you can set this card, you know, have a card in hand in your turn, and your opponent's like, oh, that's probably a Middle Force, let me MST it. You're like, nope, Judgment of Anubis, discard a card. Now destroy your monster. And you take damage equal to your monster's attack. And if their life points are low, they just lost. It's a decent card. It has its uses. The art spells that destroy, you know what I mean? So, and that destroy spells and traps like MST, for example, and stuff like Twin Cyclone and, you know, Twister, so forth and so forth. So you can use this as a, you know, as your Magic Jammer, as it were. But it's like a Magic Jammer and a Ring of Destruction combined. So I always liked the card. I always thought it was pretty cool. You know, when somebody tries to MST, like, nope, or plays Harpy Feather Dust, they're like, nope, activate this card, destroy your monster in the process, deal a lot of damage, and protect my back row. Really, really cool, awesome card. I wish you didn't have to discard. Makes it even more awesome. But hey, for that type of power, you know, you want quality, you gotta pay for it, right? XYZ block. When an opponent activates a monster effect, detach the XYZ material from a monster you control, negate the activation if you do this right. It's Divine Wrath with the condition that you detach material from one of your XYZ monsters. Yeah, I like it. We XYZ all day, every day. You know what I mean? So it's not impossible to activate this effect. And, you know, the ability, you know, our monster effects are pretty big deals. Just, you know, Exciton Knight, you want to negate that. You don't want your opponent blowing up your field. Judgment Dragon, you want to stop that. Black Rose, you want to stop that. BLS, you want to stop them from banishing your monsters. Anything of that nature, you know what I mean? You want to prevent Necros Trishula, Necros Brio, you know, Manju. Like, there's so many monster effects you want to negate, but you also would love to destroy the monster in the process. So XYZ block and Divine Wrath are great for that. Shit, even Judgment of Anubis is great for, you know, for getting rid of your opponent's monsters. Then we go to some normal traps. If you control a monster that were special summoned from the extra deck, target one face-up monster your opponent controls that was special summoned from the extra deck, take control of it until the end of the turn. You cannot special summon during the turn you activate this card. This card is good defensively, obviously. You know what I mean? You have no monster on your side field. Your opponent just exceed summon the monster, or synchro summon, or fusion summon. Then you activate this, steal the monster until end of turn, use the monster, you know, as a shield, and then, you know, there you go. It's a good card. It works defensively, but you could, you know, just wait a turn, wait until it's your turn, draw, activate it, take your opponent's monster and end the turn, and do whatever you want. You can attack with it, you know, you can tribute. It says you cannot special summon the turn you activate this card, but it doesn't say you can't tribute summon or set, you know what I mean? Or even attack. The fact that you can attack with the monster you take is awesome, especially if you attack and then they're like, Mirror Force. Good, I just got rid of Mirror Force and your monster. It's a 2-for-1, you know what I mean? Those are the types of tactics I like to do. Then we got Localized Tornado. Really, really good card. Really, really, really good card. Especially if you run a deck that has a lot of one-ofs, like, you know, one Regeki, one Soul Charge, you know, one Warning, you know, stuff like that. Cards there are currently 1 copy of or 2 copy of. Or let's say your extra deck, for example, you only have 1 Exciton Knight, 1 Sky Blaster, you know, 1 Utopia, whatever you have multiple, you know, just 1 copy of. You might want to use them more than once. So Localized Tornado is great for recycling those things. The thing I hate about Localized Tornado is that you also shuffle your hand back into the deck. It's not a problem if you only have 1 card in your hand, but you know, sometimes it could be problematic. But it's still a great card, nonetheless. Did wish it lets you draw a card after doing it, you know, so it's kind of like a pot of avarice or something, or jar avarice, whichever way you want to look at it, right? But it's still a great card nonetheless, because you literally can recycle, and you can recycle it, so it goes infinite. Because if you have a copy of Localized Tornado in the graveyard, you play this, recycle that Localized Tornado in the graveyard plus any other card in the graveyard back into the deck, plus your hand back into the deck, shuffle. You know what I mean? You just started off your infiniteness, right? You play another Localized Tornado, then you play another Localized Tornado, then another Localized, and then that one goes back, and that one goes back, and just infinite loop. Especially if you have like a really powerful draw engine / search engine, you have like a deck that can draw and search real crazy like, and do a lot of stuff. And then on your opponent's turn, you know what I mean, you activate all these traps, like bang, 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 activate all these traps, counter all your stuff, respond to everything you do, and then Localized Tornado, put everything in my graveyard in my hand back into the deck, shuffle, right? And then it's your turn, you draw, and then you start searching and drawing everything back again, and set it all over again, and just infinite, you know what I mean? As long as you have a deck that can search and draw, this card is amazing, because it just opens up infinite, you know, combos, infinite loop. Couple decks I could think of would be like Magic Specters and Ritual Beast, because you know Ritual Beast, they got that little Conahawk trick to search out their back row, and then you can use that back row to dicky on your opponent, right? Then use Localized Tornado, put it back in your deck, and then the next turn he just search them all back out. Like, these are 2 decks I can think of right off the bat you can use this on. So it'd be interesting to see more people try it, because it definitely sounds powerful, right? Direct Impact. Interesting enough, Vocalsaurus can help you activate this because he's a dinosaur. It does suck that the new Dino Myths are machines. I mean, I like the fact that they're machines, but because of this card, I don't like that they're machines. I would like them to be dinosaurs, so that way this card can be useful, because it's hard to get this card to activate. There's not that many 25 or higher, you know, dinosaurs that you could just easily splash or just use, or, you know what I mean? So, you know, there are some synchros that you can potentially use. There are Frostosaurus is the 6-star Valina, 2600 attack. It's a dinosaur. Then you got Black Tyranno and some other monsters, other big dinosaurs you could use, but they're not as quick or as effective as Exceed Summon would be, or Pendulum Summoning. I mean, again, it can work. The issue is you just need a dinosaur with 25 or more attack in order to activate this card effect. This effect is destroy all cards on the field. That's a really, really awesome effect. You know what I mean? Especially if you go first, get your big dinosaur on the field, set some back row that you plan to use, use some of it. You know, your opponent normal summons, you'd be like force back or some shit like that, right? Play some of your back row, and then all you have is direct impact and that dinosaur, and then they set their field, they end their turn. You're like, oop, end phase, direct impact, wipe out everything. You know what I mean? And then your turn, you know, you start playing your cards, and now your opponent is top decking. You know, if they used up everything, of course. So it's just a good card because of the fact that, you know, if your opponent put everything in their hand onto the field, you could just wipe it out in one shot. So it's a very powerful card, just not easy to activate, you know, but maybe someday it will be. Chain Whirlwind. Activate only when a card on the field is destroyed by a card effect. Select 2 spell and trap cards on the field and destroy them. Now we have, or we're going to have Twin Twister. So I'm not as interested in using this card in the future as much as Twin Twister. Twin Twister does what I want it to do, so no, you know, I don't really need to try to get Chain Whirlwind to be useful, but it's still a good card nonetheless. Don't get me wrong, it's a good card. Because if a card is destroyed, period. So if, let's say, your opponent destroys their own monster, or you MST one of their cards, right? Then you can play this and destroy 2 more. So you get a 3 for 2. You know what I mean? You get a 2 for 1 using this card, and then the MST is a 1 for 1, right? So you using 2 cards and you get rid of 3 of your opponent's back row. So it's pretty good. But you could also do something as simple as like bombless and then play this. You know, your opponent summons a monster, you bombless it, then you play this, or your opponent, you know, tries to special summon you warning, right? And then you play this. Not sure you can play back to back because, you know, the whole warning is a counter, but you know, you get the idea that, you know, something gets destroyed, you can play this. It doesn't have to be your opponent's stuff. You just want to destroy their stuff and then play this to get extra destruction. But it's a good card. The ability to destroy, you know, more, especially stuff like pendulum zones, like you MSC your opponent's back, you know, one of his face down cards, and then use this to pop their pendulum zone. You know, it's a pretty good thing because you're trying to reduce your opponent's resources. So the ability to take away their resources with very little cards. So using 2 cards and then wipe out 3 of their resources, that's something you want to do. And then we got Wild Tornado. Select 1 face-up card in the spell and trap card zones and destroy it. Yeah, this is a good card because it will just automatically destroy anything that's face up in your opponent's spell and trap card zone. You can destroy your own stuff, but typically you destroy theirs. Pendulum, you know, you can destroy something in their pendulum zone. I'm assuming, unless they want to be really, really specific about the whole spell and trap card zones, it's like really has to be in the zone. It can't be in the pendulum zone. But it does say card zone, doesn't say just spells and traps, because then you could target pendulum. So I think it is spell and trap specifically, just because of the wording. So anyway, just pop one of their cards in their pendulum zone, which also implies you can't even pop a field spell by this wording. Anyway, pop one of their face-up spell and trap cards in their spell and trap card zone, and then the controller of the destroyed card can then set 1 spell or trap card from their hand. Which you could probably just MST it right afterwards, right? And then the added effect this has is if this set card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, select and destroy 1 face-up card on the field, which is good because, you know, there's scenarios where you're going to be like, all right, I set this, end my turn, then your opponent's like, oh, end face MST. All right, well, since your end face MST did, I'll use it to pop your monster, or to pop the card I was going to pop with this in the first place. Your face-up continuous trap or whatever it was. You know, like let's say it was a skill drain or something, or Vanity's Emptiness. Well, you know, mainly skill drain, but you get the idea. Anything of that nature, light imprisoning, so forth and so forth. It's like, hey, you pop my face down, now I pop your floodgate. So it's a pretty good card. I like the added ability it has. You know, if I were to use a lot of traps for popping back row, those tornado and this card would be used. Shit, I would even use, you know, Chain Whirlwind. The fact that you use Chain Whirlwind and Wild Tornado together, they work together, you know what I mean? Combo them together and boom boom. Get rid of a good amount of stuff. Especially if you use this, right? And then they have to set a card and then use this to pop the card they just set plus another card. You know what I mean? You just made them lose a lot of cards in one process. Chain Dispel. Ironically enough, I just got one of these from a friend of mine. He had some spare cards he got from a booster pack he didn't want. Gave them to me and this card was in there. And just ironic, it's like, hey, I remember this card, Chain Dispel. You know, I was gonna make a video and this card is in the video. And you see it is in the video. When a spell or trap card is activated, destroy all cards in the controller's deck with the same name as the activated card. Sucks it doesn't negate the card effect, is, you know, so if somebody MSTs and you play this, it doesn't negate that MST and then get rid of the extra copies. But it is cool that at least it does get rid of the extra copies. So it's like, it's kind of like if somebody plays polymerization, they'd be like, all right, activate this. Now send the other two to the graveyard. So that way you don't have them in the grave. Or I play my Miracle Fusion, play this. Now I get rid of the extra Miracle Fusion. Oh, I play my Mass Change. Okay, play this and just send the other copies. You know, it's a decent card. I like the idea of just the fact that you can get rid of multiple copies. There are better cards. I'd rather play Curse of Forbidden Spell because it will negate that card effect, and then it makes all the other cards useless. So there'll be dead draws for the rest of the duel, which is much better. But this is a decent, you know, card. You know, it's easy to get your hands on it, and it just has potential. So that's why it's a card for the future. It might, you know, maybe making it where your opponent has 3 cards of the same name in the graveyard can trigger an effect, like a really powerful, you know, monster effect or a card effect. So you need them to have 3 cards with the same name in the graveyard to activate that powerful card. Chain this spell will guarantee that they'll have 3 copies of the same card in the graveyard for you to activate that powerful effect. So we'll see how useful it is in the future, right? XYZ Reversal. Pretty good card. Because pretty much everybody exceeds summons. Even you would exceed summon. So this is a good card to swap out. Especially what happens is you have an exceed monster on the field, right? You have a monster, you attack with it, you deal damage. Then your opponent tries to summon a monster stronger than your monster, right? He exceeds summon to something stronger. Then he attacks. Why not switch it on him, literally? You know, reverse the scenario. Now he has your weak monster and now you got his strong monster. So that's why it's called XYZ Reversal. It's a really good card. It is playable, you know what I mean? People do exceed, and if you exceed, then there you go. You're guaranteed for this to work. Begone Knave. It's one of my favorite cards. Always liked this card since it came out. The thing is, it's pretty rare to use. It's very effective in scenarios where you have monsters when they die by battle. They bring out another monster like Mystic Tomato, Reborn Tangle, stuff like that. Good at Yang Zings. I tested them out on Yang Zings. They're pretty good. One of the issues is if your opponent has no monsters, you know, you attack directly, you lose. Your monsters bounce back to hand, which is not a problem when it's a regular Yang Zing, but if it's a synchro, then it is a problem because you just lost your synchro. But since you do still deal damage, if you're going for game, it's not even that big of a deal. You deal them battle damage, then they lose. But this is a good card. I like the idea of, you know, being able to recycle, you know, summon a monster, get the monster effect, attack, deal damage, bounce it back to hand so I can summon it next turn. The only thing with constantly bouncing monsters back to your hand is the fact that leaves you wide open for attacks. You don't want somebody attacking you. Especially if they attack you with something really strong like a Cyber End Dragon with Power Bond. They attack you for 8,000. It's like, it doesn't even matter that it's going back to the hand. You're going to lose before that even happens. It's a good card nonetheless. I try to try to make use of it. I do see its use in pendulum decks, because like I said, like you'll normal summon, get your monster effect, attack, deal damage, the monster will go back to your hand. Main phase 2, you pendulum summon to get the monster back on the field. Potentially getting the monster's effect again. Especially if it's a gadget. You summon a gadget, you get a gadget, attack, deal damage, the gadget go back to your hand. Main phase 2, pendulum summon the gadget, get a gadget. You know what I mean? So you're filling up your hand with resources, and you're not defenseless because you have a monster in the field. So this and pendulum summoning can be pretty effective. So we'll see what happens in the future. Royal Prison, really good card. It's like Vanity's Emptiness, but for the graveyard. So, and it doesn't have the the drawback of it self-destroying itself. Under certain conditions, it's continuous. It has to be MST'd, right, in order for it to leave the field. So it's a really good card. There are a lot of graveyard decks, zombies and so on. So Royal Prison, definitely a good card. I don't really hear much of anybody mentioning this card. It does exist. So it's Vanity's Emptiness for the graveyard. I know Vanity's Emptiness exists currently at 1 copy, so people rather play that since it does prevent special summoning period. But hey, Royal Prison, if the deck you're going up against specials from the graveyard more than from the hand, then this is a great card. And you can run 3 copies, and it's a common, so shouldn't be that hard to find. Memory Loss. I got a couple play sets of these, and I've been testing them, and they're pretty good. They're like cheap breakthrough skills, basically. You activate it on your opponent's attack position monster, switch that monster to defense mode, and negate that monster's effect. So the first thing you do is you negate the monster's effect, and then switch it to defense mode. Of course, the monster effect has to activate. This is like I use it on stuff like somebody summons a gadget, for example. I use this, switch it to the negate the gadget's effect and switch it to defense. Or somebody summons a tour guide, or somebody like special summons BLS and be like, all right, use my effect to banish your monster. Oh, switch it to defense and negate that. And then since since BLS defense is 25, it'd be easier to run them over with like a gem pearl or something, or anything that has 26 or higher attack, and run it over. So it'd be easier to beat them in defense mode than it is in attack mode. And that's another thing, is some monsters are easier to beat in defense mode than attack mode. So this is a pretty good card. Phoenix Chain is nice. Breakthrough Skill is nice, but here's the thing about Breakthrough Skill, right? Is that the monster can still attack. It's still in attack mode, so it can attack. So that's not that great. And then Phoenix Chain is cool because it will prevent your opponent from attacking, but if they MST it, then they can attack. The cool thing about Memory Loss is that they can't attack because the monster's in defense mode. They already summoned it in attack mode, so they can't change the battle position unless it's by a card effect, and there's not that many card effects that can switch a monster's battle position. Not many that are quick play, or you could just like a spell card. There's probably a couple of trap cards that can switch them to attack mode, but you know what I mean. Traps are slow. And yeah, Phoenix Chain, Breakthrough Skill, still good cards. Just pointing out the fact that Memory Loss has its perk, because not only does it negate the effect, it also switches the monster to defense mode, so it cannot attack you. So it has defensive capabilities. So I recommend it. Give it a try. Have some fun. And that's the end of the video.